Welcome to Kimberly Crafts. Today we're sewing a ball gown using a dressmaker. I've taken approximately 2 meters of fabric and separated it into panels. You can judge this with your eye like I'm doing here, or think more carefully about how much fabric you want at the bottom of the dress rather than the top of the dress. Usually have smaller panels for the front, larger wrapping around the sides, and then larger at the back. This all depends, of course, on what type of dress you're constructing. Most dresses will have separate front panels because of the shaping of the dress. I pin them on my dress form just to keep my eye on where the dress is going and to make sure I'm not using too much fabric as I go. Remember, of course, that your fabric may have a shinier side depending on the orientation of the fabric, so try flipping the fabric around vertically to see if it looks any different with the light falling on it. Of course, you also want to pin the right side of the fabric to the inside of the dummy, because when we shape it, we create the seams on the outside so that when we sew it and flip it, the right sides are on the outside. When we start to sew and form the fabric panels around the dress form, you've got to start getting pretty adept at pinning the bits of fabric that you don't want out of the way using the dummy, and you get used to where you can put all the folds of fabric and just keep them out of the way so you can concentrate on the one part that you want to look at. Now comes the design and the shaping. You want to spend quite a lot of time putting fabric up against your dummy and deciding on the design, deciding on the fabrics, deciding on the placement, and doing lots of pinning and eyeing up of the dress so that you know what you're doing. When you come to start pinning your panels, you start pinning them in prominent areas: your waist, your bust, your hips, and anywhere else that will make the dress take form. What you want to do is make sure that the fabric lays flat against the body, and don't worry about the excess at the sides, which will be taken up with seams. If you study other dressmakers' patterns, you'll see that there are significant places where the dress and the panels will take shape, and this is the waist, the hips, the bust in 2 different places, etc. If you don't have separate panels forming your front of your body, you'll most likely have lots of darts and tucks to form the shape of the bust. Once you have your panels pinned to your dress form, you can start arranging where the panels themselves will meet to form a seam. You can then pin these seams in place on the dummy, but not so that the pins are going through the dummy itself, just that the seams are pinned to each other and nothing else. That way, once you take the pins out of the dress form, you can take the constructed dress away to your sewing machine to sew up the seams. A good way to see if the seams you're putting in place will work is to take out the pins that are holding the panels in place on the dress form, because then the tightness of the seams should keep the fabric and the dress itself on the dummy without keeping it pinned. When you're satisfied with a section, whether that's 2 panels joined together or 4, you can unpin the section of the dress and take it away to your sewing machine and sew up the seams. Don't forget to install a zipper or a closing mechanism before sewing up your complete dress, because you won't be able to take it off the dummy for a start, let alone put it on you once your dress is complete. Before you know it, you'll be closing up the final seams and trimming and sewing, and your dress will be complete, ready for any finishing touches you may have. If you select to go to part 2 now, you'll see how I put a lace overlay to complete this dress. Not only did it make the quite bright blue tone down a bit to be more formal and elegant, but it also hides a myriad of minor sewing untidiness. For example, in the zip area, which I've never been very good at. I've never taken the time to learn properly. So you can use this trick too, and it creates a beautiful dress. See you there.